Hello and welcome to the Polymath Podcast. Hello, innovators. I am Dustin Miller PolyInnovator. Today we're talking with Emily Kund, the quiz queen herself, one of the hosts of the Tableau Wannabe Podcast alongside Matt Francis, as well as overall data strategist. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're here to talk about data strategy, quizzes, all kinds of different things. You got all of that going on. What got you started before all that? What was kind of your mindset?
Well, actually, I got started as a bank examiner.
Oh.
So up through June 2018, I had actually been a bank examiner for 18 and a half years and was a year and a half away from qualifying for pension and really had this life decision ahead of me on what do I want to do? My children, I have 2 kids, and my children were really missing me. I had high travel at work, and I just really looked at my situation, and my work environment wasn't the happiest. Mm-hmm. And so I took a look at my work situation and said, I can weather this storm. I can keep plugging away and do the thing that I'm expected to do, stay on. And I had goals there. So I could I would go for my goals and really achieve that from a career perspective, but things aren't going to get better. I'm not going to travel less. Mm-hmm. I'm going to miss my kids more. They're going to miss me. And at the end of the day, I just really reflected on, is this what it's about? And after I really thought about that, I consulted with my husband and we made the decision after I ran some numbers to bring me home. And it's been the scariest thing in the world. but oh my gosh, it's been so, even through all of the scary stuff and the crying of the, oh my gosh, can I even do this? Should I really look for work? Go back to a 9 to 5 or, something like that. What should I do? And even through all of that, it still was the best decision I've made. So along that path, about, I guess it was 2009, I transferred in our agency from being a bank examiner in the field, which is like an auditor, except you're employed by the government and the banks can't fire you. And we don't tell the banks, like we can't direct them what to do because we're not management. So that's a general misconception sometimes. But so during that career, I had the opportunity to go from the field because we were starting our family at the time. I just wanted something where I could go into an office every day, leave, and not have that some of the pressure of being in the field. So I transitioned into our headquarters unit where I became a system administrator for a data retrieval tool that there were a lot of benefits of. And during that time, I really gained a really great skill set and just my perspective broadened on like system administration. Like I didn't even know about that, but I was representing the business. So I kind of got to learn it as I went and dealt with IT management. And so I learned a lot from that. And during that time, I was introduced to this tool called Tableau, which is a data visualization tool. And when I got the training on it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. But then I had to work on my day job because we were in the process of relaunching this. So it was being redeveloped. Mm-hmm. It was a major effort. So I just kind of like stuck it on the shelf in my head. And then a couple of years later, when my agency and another agency merged, I had the opportunity to apply for, and then ultimately got a position as a reporting and analysis team lead.
Okay.
And through that, I really then got to pull that tool that I had learned about off of the shelf in my head and said, well, now I have an opportunity to really use this. And that's what I started to do, is to see where it would make sense in my agency or in my part of the agency to start using that and migrate away from Excel-based standard reporting that we had. And it was through that process and going to the Tableau conferences that a couple of years later, something clicked for me and I became really involved in the community at that point. And ever since then, I used to blog monthly. I stopped blogging monthly. I guess it was 2017. So I did about 4 years worth of, or 3 to 4 years worth of blogging monthly, where I was sharing my journey with Tableau and including some of the challenges I had because, working full-time mom, I had other activities outside of work I was doing. So that was really interesting, but a really great way for me to be engaged in the community. And then in 2015, I started the Tableau Wannabe Podcast. But throughout that time, I kind of fell in love with data visualization and what it could do for us as an agency. But then I also saw what it was doing to people and how, as professionals, they were able to grow. And that was part of this giving back aspect to the Tableau community. I applied for conference one year, and as well as a bunch of other folks, and I didn't get accepted, which was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you didn't get accepted.
But I wasn't too worried about myself. I was just like, oh, I'll blog about it, whatever. And then my other friend didn't get accepted. And I was like, no, but he has a really great message that people need to hear. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, you know what? If Tableau won't have you at their conference, I'll create my own. So then I created a conference, an online virtual summit, which that was in 2015. And it's been going strong ever since. And this is our 5th year. So it looks a little different now because everybody's virtual and we're also supporting Tableau community efforts as well. So we've partnered up with the company because we're an independent kind of initiative just made up of community members. But I really love data visualization. And so when I left my job in 2018, I thought I was going to help banks because that's where I had over 20 years of experience. I thought I was going to help them with data visualization, but it didn't light me up. And what lights me up though is helping entrepreneurs and coaches because that industry has it's so rich with data and they don't see it because that's not their zone of genius generally. And so that's where I kind of pivoted and then went into quizzes because I just kind of found a quiz platform and I did a quiz for myself and really started to love that. And I saw how a quiz, I always say the quiz is a lead magnet, mm-hmm. and the lead magnet part is the invitation into your house, and the data is the information that keeps people at your party.
Yeah.
So, and so that's kind of how the intersection of data and quizzes and how that works together in my business now at a very high level.
Yeah. I mean, I think that whole story there also exemplifies your passion for data and how you really kind of learn to love it. It's one of those things too, where some people are more naturally kind of big cloud oriented, like their head in the clouds, where people are more detail and nitty gritty, but we really need both to really be successful. And a lot of entrepreneurs, people who you coach and help, are people who are going to be most of the time in their head in the clouds. They see the big picture, but they don't know how to get there. And I know personally, I've been in that case too. So I get how your efforts towards that goal and that kind of sub-market is one of those things where it really kind of drove me towards like, hey, these are people I can help. These are data visualizations, a very wonderful and powerful tool.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I think helps me out, it's a blessing and a curse, is the ability to strategize and be very visionary, but then have that activator. So if you're familiar with the strength finders, mm-hmm. 2 of my top 5 strengths are, one of them is ideation and the other is activation. So I can spin ideas all day long and I, for the most part, can activate to get them done.
Good.
So that's where it's helpful in one sense that I can talk with an entrepreneur and say, oh, this is your vision. Cool. What data do we have to support that? If you don't have data, then what can we do to get that data? Mm-hmm. Or with quizzes, send the quiz out there as a lead magnet. And then the answers are the data that can help them now figure out what to post on social media, figure out additional free resources, podcast episodes, what to write in your email blast, all of that good stuff. So that's what keeps them staying at the party, being your community. So I love it. It's great.
Well, and it's the combination of that big picture and details, like we're saying, and being able to show that to people that we're talking to. And like even the innovators in the audience could benefit from it, even if they're not entrepreneurial in nature, because sometimes they might need to visualize the innovations they're trying to create or the companies that they're in. And regardless if you're an employee or an entrepreneur, you're one of the or employer, you're one of those people that can benefit from it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the stories that I like to tell about why I love visualization so much, I mean, it's not because of the cool aspect or the pretty charts. I mean, like I can talk about color association and color as part of data visualization all day long. That's not the part that really is like the thing for me. It's the power of what it can do. And so I had a few friends who were on the project Visualize No Malaria. And with that project, they were able to stand up a data collection effort. Mm-hmm. They were visualizing data. So in sub-Saharan Africa, malaria is a huge issue. And in the course of 5 years, through the work they did, partnered with PATH, which is a major international organization, they were able, basically in the last 30 seconds that I've been talking, it really like it basically saves a child's life in like every 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. It reduced cases by, I think it's, I'd have to double check my numbers on this, but I think it reduced the cases of death by 92% in that region, that specific region they were working in. So if it can save lives, then I feel so certain. And also I've seen some other business use cases. I have a friend who works for a major corporation here in the US, and, he has a story about how it saved his company money. But if it can save lives, then I know data visualization can be beneficial for anyone, whether it's companies, individuals, entrepreneurs, growing teams. And it's becoming part of our daily lives. Becoming part of our world.
I was just saying it's part of our daily lives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we look now with, the COVID information. Mm-hmm. We see data visualization every day. If you turn on the news or you're looking on Twitter, the Johns Hopkins University map, or if you look on CNN or whatever news channel, they will have a data visualization. It's either going to be a map or bands, big ass numbers. That's a visualization, and we see that. We also see it if you're wearing an Apple Watch. The rings on my watch are a visualization of my work. When Fitbit and the sleep information that they were capturing, like how many hours of sleep did you get? That's all visualization that is just kind of slowly making its way into our lives. And I love it. I love that quantified self.
Quantified self is a good way to think about it. And kind of going back to, you were talking about the data visualization of malaria in Africa too. One of the kind of sub-niches of this podcast is also about smart cities and really just urban development for a modern era. And one of the things is I try to focus a little bit more towards like actual like Barcelona or Singapore, cities that are actually going to be closer to doing it. But one thing I'm really curious about is how that smart technology is going to be helpful in not really visualization per se, but more in data statistics in general for these third world countries, like in many places in Africa or even in South America where the technology is not far along, but like getting there,
Yeah. Well, I think anytime that we have some monitoring mechanisms or data collection mechanism in place, whether that's the effort of saying, okay, we had the person go out pen and paper to collect this data, how can we make that more efficient? That was part of the work that PATH did to help improve that, to be more timely. So that way their response could be more timely. So there's that side of it of, yeah, it might not be where it could ultimately be, but it just takes an organization to really think about, okay, so then what could we do? Could we have, because essentially what they did was they brought an SME over to Africa to help them with data collection and building a database to store that information. So that way it could be timelier, and timely data collection, timely response is a way to distribute medicine timely and save lives.
Yeah.
So from a smart city perspective, it's what data are they using and collecting? And we see other cities within the US who are starting to use data visualizations to help see where resources need to go. And I think that that's a really great start.
Definitely. And I think that there's a lot of use cases. That's why if you look at different career guidelines, like, hey, these are the careers that are going to be big in the next 1 or 2 decades. Data analysis and data statistics, and I guess visualization in this case as well, all 3 of those subsets and tiers are definitely going to be on the rise. And I think visualization is a very crucial skill to learn, because even for marketers, you need it for social media. Even for content creators, you need it for the statistics of who's watching your stuff, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that I tell my audience is, hey, go to your if you have a business account on Instagram, go look at your insights. That is a really great way to get data and information about your audience. For my quiz people, I will look at that. I'll tell them one of the things that I love is that data that underlies that quiz. And you can use it in 2 different ways. One is the percentage of people who responded a certain way. So if 63% of people said that they struggle with X, you can actually create a post, create a piece of content, I'll say, to keep it generic. You can create a piece of content around that 63%, like in an informal poll or on a recent quiz, 63% or assessment, 63% of people said they struggle with X. And then that gives the entrepreneur opportunity to say, I see you. Here's the solution, or here's a quick tip, or whatever that piece of value may be. And the transformation or the change that can happen as a result. So that's one way. And then the other way is to really speak to the actual struggle, because that a lot of people, 63%, struggled with that. You can say, have you struggled with X? I did too. And insert solution. So it's using data in a way that is meaningful. But I also tell people you should use it ethically, right? Like if you didn't struggle with that, well, don't say that you struggled with it just so that you can connect with your audience. Yeah. That was air quotes for people who didn't see. But, use data ethically. That includes the quiz data that you collect. But absolutely. I love it. And I think that it can become a part of our lives if we are open and allow it.
Well, and to bounce off your point there, you say ethically, but you also could be the kind of person like you might be. It might be easier for you to find a solution, even if you don't know it now, to go help your audience too. Then they might be able to find it. Granted, everyone can use Google, but if you're already in a similar niche or topic, you might be able to find a solution, learn it yourself, and then it is ethical to actually base your actions off that data.
Oh, and sure. Yeah. I was just going to say, no, what I meant was if you didn't let's just say overeating, for example, if 63% of respondents said that they struggled with overeating and you didn't, then, in my opinion, you can't say, I see you, I struggled with overeating too.
Yeah.
But you didn't. However, if you say, I see you, I see the struggle people have. I know a lot of people have a struggle with overeating. And because I want to serve my audience, of course, if you come from a place of service, I don't think that you can go wrong, really. Yeah. But that's just my thought. But then if you go, you know what, I know people in my community struggle with overeating. That's why I did the research. And here's what I found as part of my research. And then you outline a solution. That's different. Still super valuable, but you're not owning that fact that you struggled with overeating at that point. Yeah. So that's what I mean when I talk about using it ethically.
I think we're on the same page.
Yep.
And one other thing, just a side note for the listeners, if your Instagram profile is just personal, move that over to business now. Get those insights.
If you're a business, yes, you absolutely need to. And if you have the creator option, I would say that probably would be a good move too. There's not like a ton of, on the surface, you can't see a big difference, but I think that there are some extra little like insights that you can get.
Even for like personal profiles, I think that it's a nice tool to have, because sometimes you might want to create content, not necessarily as a creator just yet, but on the growing path towards that, and be able to see like, hey, my people actually like this. Let's work towards that. Become a creator, become a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you think that you're on the path to entrepreneurship, then definitely create, it's free to convert it over to a business account. And I mean, like, I love it. Like I've done different strategies with my Instagram. And so I'm looking at my audience insights all the time. I'm actually trying to clean up the people who don't engage with me, because that's not helping me or the community I want to serve out. So I've also deploying some strategies around that as well. So that's how data helps me.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go into that a little bit more, but kind of pivoting towards one of the biggest questions I was talking to you about is that quizzes seem to be your jam. What sort of things do you like about that interactivity?
Well, I think that that's one of the biggest parts is that it's a really great lead magnet. It converts higher than a lot of other static lead magnets. Mm-hmm. And I guess for me, like I have a little bit of shiny object syndrome. So I like to be able to do something and then get the results really quickly. And I don't want to have to like search in my email for it. Like I'm happy when people send me email about stuff, but if it's a PDF, like 9 times out of 10, I'm not reading it. Mm-hmm. At least not soon after I took that quiz or opted in. And so I love that quizzes provide that immediate value. It's that interactive nature, and they don't take that long. And then I also love that it's a lead in that, or an opt-in that works for both people, meaning the quiz taker's getting something because they're getting that immediate feedback for their results. And then there should be a valuable call to action at the end. And then the entrepreneur is getting information about that person. Whereas, for your PDF ebook, you're not getting information back unless the person is directly emailing you or messaging you. So I love that aspect about it. But the biggest thing is the data.
I was just going to ask, because I really am curious about personalization for different users. So let's say you have 30 people that come to your website quite often, 25 of them do your interactive quizzes, and they give you data on that, like, this is what I'm interested in. These are the blog posts I read. These are the content that you make that I resonate with, and starting to suggest like, hey, you might like this content more, quite like what Amazon does with suggested products, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of plugins or tools that'll do that. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that for a quiz, the way that it'll generally work is that you'll have different buckets of individuals. And then based on their result, you send them to that call to action to a blog post or to other content that will be valuable for them. So that personalization is huge. I mean, quizzes, like the benefits of a quiz are kind of like my kids. Mm-hmm. I'm not ever going to say one thing is my absolute favorite. They're all my favorites. So that was a little bad mom joke. Sorry, I couldn't help it. But it's true. Like, I love the personalization aspect. I think that that's super valuable. The segmentation into your email list or chatbot list or whatever list you're building, I think that's huge. And then there's an actual like benefit associated with segmenting your email list in terms of ROI. Building an email list, the ROI on that is huge. It's like 42 times. So it's 42 for every $1 you spend, you get $42 back in return. Based on one of the studies or articles I just read, I've also seen 44, so I stick with 42 to be conservative. So I love all of those things. The personalization, though, is really important because it helps you see and understand that person.
Yeah.
And then if you feel seen, which, by the way, another reason why I love quizzes is because they help us on a psychological level to be and to belong. Yeah. So a quiz helps somebody like know more about themselves. So whether that's physically or mentally, so that's the being part. And then the belonging is that quizzes are super shareable. So they're sharing it out on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. And although Facebook is like the platform where quizzes are shared the most, so they're sharing it out with their community and having a conversation about it. And you're also inviting people in as the entrepreneur. You're inviting those quiz takers into your community. So you may make their results visible if they're saying, hey, screenshot your results and tag me so that I can celebrate you. So when somebody does that, share it to your stories. And then you're becoming visible and being invited into their community, not just in the email sense, but on the social media sense. So again, like I don't have a favorite because they're all my favorite, but there's so many great reasons why quizzes are so amazing.
Definitely. And one thing you kind of made me think of is, this might be kind of controversial, but the Myers-Briggs quiz or test, I guess you could say, which what isn't actually necessarily scientifically backed. And there's a lot of nuance between the science community, like is it actually really valid or not? But I think what you were kind of saying there too is that it's almost a community aspect or the tribes mentality where we feel like we belong to a certain group, and also too the self-identification. Some people really just want an external source to help them identify who am I, who is me, like what traits identify myself. So I think those two factors really make that test, the Myers-Briggs, really powerful, and how that quiz can be important.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's how that can work. The article that I'm referencing from Dr. Noam Spancer, it was in Psychology Today, and he talked about the need to be and the need to belong and how we all have these basic needs. But when you boil it down, there's two basic needs. When I read that, the light bulb went off for me with quizzes and said, oh my gosh, this is it. Now, quizzes can be cutesy, right? Like Disney Princess is probably the most popular shared quiz of all time. I don't really know what me learning that I'm Belle is going to do for me, except if I love Disney, or maybe if I read, beneath the character there, Belle loves books.
Yeah.
So, I'm a book lover, which is true. So, that's a cutesy quiz. You may not read as much into that, but I have an acquaintance, Amanda Bucci, who is somebody whom I deeply respect. She has a quiz out there. She's not my client. I'll just, make that clear. Her quiz is so amazing, and it's the entrepreneurial archetype quiz. And it is so good, and it helps. It helps me understand who I am. And then she serves up information to help you know what your archetype is, and then how that can help you in your business, and how you can kind of dip your toe or kind of lean into the other archetypes to help you be successful. Because if you're always coaching and you're not really thinking in terms of an entrepreneur, or if you're always teaching and not looking at other aspects of being an entrepreneur, that can be detrimental to your business. So I think that is one of the best quizzes, strategies, like the whole ecosystem. Amanda nailed it. And it's on that need to be.
So yeah, and when it comes to those quizzes too, like we said, the self-identification is very important, but I think some of the archetypes and understanding it helps you kind of put in your frame of mind, what kind of person are you? Even regardless of the scientific merit or even just the social connection ecosystem behind it, there's a whole wide range of applications. So what got you hooked into quizzes? What was kind of the hook sinker into you?
Yeah, so I think that was at the end of 2018 into early 2019 when I left my job at the agency in June of 2018, planned my expenses, nailed that. I was so happy. What I didn't plan was that I was going to pivot away from doing traditional data visualization consulting to doing more like trying to help entrepreneurs. But then there was a whole thing around messaging data with entrepreneurs, because some entrepreneurs cringe when they hear the word data. So how do I get around that? And data visualization, what is that? So I had a really difficult time trying to figure out how to message that out. I didn't have any money coming in. And then my husband, who also works for the public sector, was furloughed. And if you remember, in that 2018, 2019 period, that was the longest furlough in history, if my memory serves me right. So we had no money coming in. And I was like, oh no. What are we going to do? But I was kind of dabbling in network marketing as a hobby. And while I love the products and I still use the products for that company today, what I do know also is that while I don't build the business, the compensation plan for that company is amazing. So I knew that there were economic benefits. And what I also believed was that we thought that we had pretty stable recurring income, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want other people to feel like they were rock solid and then something like this happens and then they have no contingency. So how can I help with that? And I know passive income is a really great way to diversify your income stream.
But sometimes you just need income in general,
Right. Well, right. So I put together, I happened to find, I don't even know exactly how I found it, but I found this quiz platform and I was like, well, I'm going to build a quiz here. And maybe if I can show people the financial opportunity associated with this network marketing company, then maybe I can build my team, I can get income, and then that'll help us like buy groceries or whatever until the paycheck starts coming in again. And when I posted it out on Facebook, I have friends who are still bank examiners who said, and it was a financial fitness quiz. They said, Emily, this is really good. This is better than what some of our banks do. And I was like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because if I take the skills I learned as a bank examiner, communication, researching and investigation, analytical, like if I take some of those skills, I apply them to quizzes. So I researched my area, which is what I do for my clients. I research it. So I just don't like look on the internet and go, cool, that sounds great, I'll use that. No, I research it, back it up with a couple of sources that are credible. That validation of this is a really good quiz was all I needed to go, okay, so then how can I make a business out of this? And from that point on, then I got certified as a partner with Interact, which is the quiz platform that I recommend, and started building out my business, which has been referral based. And now I've switched it because I really love teaching. So I have kind of two sides of my business, the quiz part. So I'm now pivoting to move more to a accelerator group coaching kind of program, with then that having that be the primary offering and then having one-on-one work be the side offering. So that way I can really help as many people as possible. So that's kind of how I came into quizzes, and we've already talked about why I love them so much.
Yeah. So I wanted to interrupt real quick too. Are you going to go into courses?
What I'm doing right now is an accelerator that will have course modules.
Okay.
But it will be it's like a facilitated self-study in a sense, where like that's my old like school type of learning terminology, but it's where we have course modules that's up on a website that the client that my students will have access to. Then there's going to be weekly calls, group coaching calls to coach them through. Then at the end of the 8 weeks, so it's really just building out a quiz funnel where it's the quiz, building out an email sequence, and then creating a traffic strategy, because you need all three to really be effective. And I love it because of just the value, but then also the applicability, taking those skills that you learn about copywriting and traffic, and then being able to apply them outside of the quiz funnel to whatever your other big pieces of content are. For me, like that hypes me up so much. Like I'm keeping it calm for you, but I'm like, let's go.
My language. So literally, I couldn't even, I tried to active listen so much, but I couldn't keep my mouth closed, because literally the phase of my content cycle, including for most of the podcast and most of the blog that I do and courses, is about self-education, particularly through a framework I'm developing called the modular degree, which almost acts like an accelerator, like you're saying. So basically we're on the same page, just for different topics. And one more thing I wanted to go into is that part of the reason why I thought you would be a good guest for the show is that a lot of the guests I have on are polymathic or even a polymath, which we'll go into a little bit more later. But being that someone who's interdisciplinary, and so you definitely fit that case. And one thing you really implied that was heavily important was the fact that you could take one skill and apply it to another area. and really maximize the longevity of that skill and translate it to a new skill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even as a bank examiner, I did that because that's how I think, like I used to say, risk is risk is risk. Like there are different types of risk, but if you understand the components, if you understand that you need to identify, measure, monitor, and control, then it's really like understanding, like you have to understand that subject matter, but then from a bank examiner perspective, well, then how are they identifying it? How are they measuring it? How are they monitoring? How are they controlling? You ask the same questions. And so it's really applying the knowledge that you know to another area. And you can do that. And so I always think about what do I know and how can I apply that? Even when I'm trying to troubleshoot some of the stuff I do in data visualization. Okay, so then what did I do? Like, how is this similar? What can I do? Like, I like to leverage information that's already there, either that I have or somebody else has done, because I'm trying to do a lot of stuff. So like I want simple, impactful, what can get me to my destination quicker? And that's, I think, part of it.
Well, and I think that's actually a really cool point is that being a polymath is someone who's skilled in multiple areas. And one of the things that people often say is that when you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. But a polymath is beyond that point where you're a higher skill level. And one thing I think a lot of people get confused is actually the data behind it. So there's two ways to go about it. You can be someone who does everything at once and try to build up all those skills and data points at the same time, which sort of works if you do it correctly for a long period of time. Or you can build up one, nice and executive, like you were saying, like something that you could really be actionable on. Do that first, do the other one, then the other one after that. But knowing which pillar, which skill that you need to do, and knowing which actionable route to take is where visualization, I think, really comes into play. And a very, very important that people listening in should take it into account.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. I agreed.
I really wanted to pull that out of you there. So sorry if I ranted a bit.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, yeah, I think that's true. You know, I mean, I used the term polymath before. I thought it was cool. I didn't know necessarily some of the distinguishing factors between them because that's not where I put my focus.
Yeah.
Right. Like I mean, here's what I know about myself.
Yeah.
Is I know that I'm here on this earth to serve. Like, not to get too woo-woo, but I know that I'm here to serve. I know that I have skills that and passions, and I know that they have intersected. And so how does that service help people? I'm not going to talk about data visualization or data visualization training because I'm actually coming off of like a 6-week stint of training hundreds of people how to use the tool Tableau that I use. So I'm not going to talk about Tableau training with my entrepreneurs. Like, that's not going to help them. Yeah. I am going to talk to them about something that I am super passionate about, which is service. And how can you be of service? And how can you be better? How can you see your people more? So, I think it's knowing when to use those skills. And like, I just believe that whatever I am passionate about, whatever I focus on, I have the ability to learn it. And if I don't, then that's not really meant for me, and I'll just outsource that.
Yeah. And I think that's a level of your self-awareness there too. You know what you can do, what you can do if you learned, and you know what you want to do as well. You have that trifecta because you've almost done that data analysis for yourself. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everybody should.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the point we're trying to drive in here. But I just wanted to simplify you because I think it's very powerful that you were able to do that.
Oh, thank you. Like, it's really like, it's one of the reasons why I feel like my quiz work is so important. Because I've had people come up to me and they're like, oh, quizzes are cute. Like, my business isn't cute, Emily. And I'm just like, well, quizzes are actually amazing. And what I also think about is it gets back to that service. And you use your skills for your zone of genius. Like, work in your zone of genius, outsource the rest. We all have different zones of genius, and there are some of us that have multiple. And I think when you find somebody like that, that's somebody that you keep in your circle. as long as they're good, high vibe and, are great people, you keep them in your circle because you know that you can always go to them with questions, and that they're going to be on your team, right? Like they're supporting you. So staying in your zone of genius, knowing what your skills are and when you need to focus on them and when you need to pull back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because at the end of the day, there's only so much time we have and only so much we can truly focus on and be good at.
Right.
Like, could I also become a personal trainer right now? Probably. Would it be the best decision for me? No, because I've got too much on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where I'm also now looking based on some qualitative data, how I feel. So, and then the next step, which is why I love data, which is see and understand that data to make informed actions or next steps. For me, feeling overwhelmed, like I've got too much, like I've become then a victim of being able to do a lot because I want to help a lot. So now I'm a victim of that. So how can I create boundaries to help? Because at the end of the day, I know what my vision and what my goals are. And sometimes you do need to push the gas to accelerate one versus the other. And it is self-awareness, but it's using some of that data, whether that's numeric or whether that's qualitative data and going, I feel really overwhelmed and what's going to help me?
Yeah.
So that's something to think about too, because I think a lot of people in our position can get overwhelmed, especially if they are service-based people, like they want to be of service because you can do so much.
Yeah. Well, and I really thought that like having you on today would be powerful because of the way your thought processes are. From what I saw from all the content I was researching into and a lot of the questions I even made in here too, I was thinking about how can I pull out the data points in your mind about like, what can we do about quizzes? What can we do about self-education and e-learning? And a lot of the topics that I think we've already kind of dug into. And I think that you brought up a point, you may not even realize that like being a polymath is not for everybody. And you need to see if the actions you're taking are actually powerful, I keep saying powerful, but are actually useful enough and serviceable enough to other people. Are they worth doing a multi-potential thing, or do you need a specialized? Are you the kind of person that needs to do it? And you need data to know that. That's why people go to college too, because they get that data from peers and feedback.
Yeah. And one of the things that's helped me, because I've recently gone through this, because service is such a big thing for me, I was serving through giving my time to local volunteer organizations. I was a member of the Junior League locally. I was the events operations lead in the DC area for Girls Plus Data. I love their mission. I love everything that organization is doing. I also realized even though I have the technical skills and really for the task involved, no problem. My issue was I didn't have enough time to do Junior League, to do Girls Plus Data, to use those skills in those organizations, to build my business to where I want it to be, to then be a good mom, to then also working on my fitness, my self-care, to doing all of those things. So it's one thing to know this, to have the skill, but then it's employing the skill. And how do you do that in a way where you are providing your best? And when I didn't feel like I was providing my best, I actually had to step away. And that was a super hard decision for me. But I think that a lot of people can get into that situation where they want to help. They want to provide people the benefit of what they've learned and their skill set. And it can become a point where it's like, well, we're not really helping anybody here. So that's a hard thing to kind of work through for some people, and I'll say me. But I think it's also necessary because we want to, or maybe just me, I'll speak for myself. Like I want to provide my best for whoever I'm really trying to serve. And if I'm not providing that standard, then something has to change.
I resonate with that too. And I feel that if you're not providing the best, personally for me too, I think that we need to reevaluate where we're going.
And I think the other thing that I just wanted to talk about, like through that example that I was sharing of, stepping back and providing your best. I mean, really, there aren't that many permanent decisions in life. And so a lot of times I'll say, I can't do this. Like I have to step away. I have to step down. And that's the situation for now. It doesn't mean my skill set doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't want to help anymore. I think that there's a lot of power in just saying, I have this. I'm choosing when to use it and when not. And it may be a temporary decision. And that is going to benefit me and others in the long run. So I just wanted to add that in there because I think that there's that can be empowering for people.
Well, and time management is a very crucial aspect to human existence, let alone entrepreneurs and quiz creators and just overall people in general. And I think that knowing when to say no and when to say yes is a very important crucial. And that's one thing about polymathy too, is that like you need to know when you want to pursue a specific skill and when not to. So kind of pivoting a little bit to another question here, something I ask all my guests, what is a polymath to you?
So a polymath is somebody who has built up skill sets in multiple areas, and so that they can be a resource in multiple areas. That's how I see it.
I love it. And I think how that was very short and sweet. I like how concise it was. I like how too, you're very still service oriented. That's where your brain is at. And I think that's a very important, if anyone's listening in, very important thing to know about Emily here is that she's service oriented. She wants to help people. So where can people find you if they want to get your services?
Sure. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Emily Kund. That's where I have more quiz conversations. So I'm going to provide a little context for each one. So for Instagram, you're pretty much going to find quiz and business type of information, light data stuff there. That's at Emily Kund, Kund. And then on Twitter, that's where you'll find mostly data visualization. And that's at Emily Kund. And then LinkedIn is primarily going to be data visualization. And that's LinkedIn/in/Emily Kund. You can always visit. Yeah. And you can always visit my website. It's emilykund.com. And that's more of the quiz stuff and analytics to inform for my training, data visualization training. That's really what I focus on there, and blogging about Tableau and data visualization.
Well, and I'm sad we didn't get too much into the tools like Tableau or maybe even Airtable and Notion. Perhaps I'll have you on again. We can talk more about the actual tools and get kind of like nerdy about them. Thank you for coming on the show. Is there anything that you would like to ask the audience to work on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is be open and be curious. And your audience probably doesn't even have an issue with that. But for really what would make me super happy is that if you connected with me, like I absolutely love that. I love making connections. I love community. It's how I have built up an amazing Tableau community over the last 7 years. And so please reach out to me if you have any questions, whether it's on quizzes, Instagram, or like general like entrepreneurial advice or data visualization or Tableau. I am happy to set up a call and answer any questions. And if you are interested in quizzes, I'd love to provide your audience. If any of your audience is interested in quizzes, I'd love to provide them a freebie that you can put a link in your show notes for.
Definitely. And once again, thank you for coming on the show. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciated it.